do my own words, but I was trying to add in my own. Okay. Hello, my name is Sierra Goodlow, and my hero is my mom. She went from being an average student to being her own CEO of her own company. My mom is my hero because she's a risk taker. She got through a lot of obstacles and difficulties, yet she still overcame them and did what she wanted to do. Instead of me telling her story, I'm gonna have her tell her own story.
Growing up, my great-grandparents took care of me, and my great-grandmother and my great-grandfather, and they were the best thing that ever happened to me. Carl Thomas was my great-grandfather, and Pauline Beach Thomas was my great-grandmother. And they were the best thing that ever happened to me. So I'm very grateful that they raised me from a toddler all the way to adulthood.
But all those other schools we would walk. So this is Clay Street. This is the home up here on the left, 1012 Clay Street, which is where I grew up. It looks very different now, but that's the home that housed multiple generations of people. And so this whole block, this whole street was predominantly African American, and the majority of those residents were high achieving educators.
They were my great-grandparents, so our household was filled with multi-generations of family. I do have a sister, and so my sister is 6 years younger than me, so they raised us. We were like the two youngest in the house at the time. But then there were just layers of family from my grandmother was there at one point with her family, which included my uncles, my aunt, and then I had other extended family members and cousins, and it was just multi-generational is what I can best describe it as. Somebody was always home. The house was never ever empty. It was always filled with family and lots of food. There was always plenty of food to go around. That was just a way of bringing everyone together. That was a love language, to always have plenty of food, especially Sunday dinner. And it wouldn't be until after my great-grandmother passed away, and upon her passing, she left me in charge of her affairs, the executress of her estate. And in that, the decision was made to sell the home. And so it was through the process of preparing the house to be sold, to clear it out, which meant moving all the furniture, moving all the pictures, just so many years and memories of just layers of family. And it was on that moment that the first time I ever saw the house that was empty. And it was really a surreal moment. It was something that I didn't really know how to react. But up until that point, the house was always filled with family and friends.
Who I am, everything that I am and what I ever aspire to be, I dedicated to these two wonderful angels, my great-grandparents, Pauline Beach Thomas and Carl Thomas. They are my everything.
I would see my mother, the job that she had worked in, because Shelbyville is a very rural community, and a lot of its economic development was centered on tobacco and farming. And so she worked in tobacco, in the tobacco industry. And so I would see her as the season would require her to come back to Shelbyville. So she would come through in the summertime for 2 weeks, and then I would see her again in the winter for 2 weeks, sometimes a little longer. But that was the rotation of when I would see my mother. Not every day, because she lived in a different state, but it would be on a rotation of kind of like at least twice a year. The relationship with my birth mother has taught me. It has taught me about love, also about acceptance, about forgiveness, and about capacity. And so what I understand now as an adult, what I didn't understand growing up, is that she only has the capacity to give me so much. And for so many years, I was in need and required so much more. And so now here I am as an adult. Of course, she's gotten older. And so we have a relationship, but growing up, it was very dysfunctional. And we thrived in that dysfunction because at the time, for me, I didn't know anything else. But I love her. Without her, I would not be here. She brought me into this world.
Good. And so my best friend, Allison, she lived in an area that was also a housing area primarily for educators, because her father was one of the first black science teachers, and also he was a basketball coach. And so they had a housing area for those types of individuals. And so Allison lived right around the block from me, and we grew up together, and we would walk to school together and, you know, spend our time after school. This is the house where Allison grew up. And so growing up, coming to her house, it was like a mansion, you know, because it was so big and had an upstairs and a basement, and just anything like that for me was a symbol of just, ooh, you've made it. And but we were best friends growing up, and Allison is really the one that showed me the way, and she shepherded me along the path of education.
And so we shared a lot. We had so much in common. Even our last name had the same same first initial. So all through high school, grade school, elementary school, we were in the same homeroom. So we would walk to school. We went to the same church, and Allison was truly more than a friend. She was the person who believed in me and really encouraged and motivated me to go to college when I didn't think that I could. So she was definitely my best friend growing up. Unfortunately, she passed away unexpectedly at the age of 23. She had just enrolled and was about to start her master's program, and she passed away just weeks before she was due to start that semester. I loved school up until third grade. And so I can remember my third grade teacher, or let's just say third grade was the best grade that I can really remember. Sometimes fourth, but third grade in particular. I had a teacher, her name was Miss Kimbrough, and she was very patient and nurturing. And so I really just kind of gravitated to her style of teaching. When I went to the fourth grade, it was a different building, and so it was a different environment, but the fourth grade teacher was still very engaging. I really liked her style because she was very animated. She had a whole lot of energy. Her name was Miss Sawyer. And what I remember most about her is that she would read aloud to us. When we would come in from recess, she would read passages from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And she would read with such animation that really she would make it come to life. And then when I would get home, we had the old school wardrobes in our house. So I was always trying to figure out if I could just peel back some of the clothes, and if I could walk into my wardrobe, if I would be transformed into Narnia, but I didn't. But those are the best things that I remember as far as happy moments in my K through 12 experience. After that, it was downhill. I was not engaged, I was bullied, I was fighting, I was stealing, I was suspended, all of that. So yeah, just third and fourth grade were the happy times for me.
Was college ever on your mind during high school?
Never. Absolutely not. And it was never on my mind because, as I said, my grades were not really up to par. And my way of thinking at the time is that you had to have, make honor roll. And in making honor roll, then you could succeed and go on to college. And you had to go to college right out of high school. In the multi-generational home that I grew up, excuse me, I didn't see a lot of that happening. The goal was to graduate high school, get a good job, go on about your life. Because the good job, you would stay at it until you retired, 20, 30 years, what have you. So that was the model that was set before me. And the good jobs came in the way of working in a manufacturing or some sort of factory or farming work, because we grew up in a rural community. I didn't want to do that either. So my plan was never to go to college after high school. I simply wanted to get as far away as I could from my small town. I met your father, Cecil Goodlow. I met him the weekend of July 4th, 1994. And I was out with friends because it was the holiday weekend. And so we were out having a good time, and he was at the same place that we were. And that's how we met. He, approached me and we started talking. And then we soon discovered that we knew people in common. And when I told him where I was from, that I was from Shelbyville, then he said that he had family in Shelbyville. And so that then started the courtship, because we had a lot of people that we knew in common. And so then in that moment, he asked me what was I doing the next day, which was a Sunday, because we met on a Saturday. And I told him that I was going to church, because even though I was out having a good time on Saturday night, I knew that I was going to church on Sunday. And he said, well, how about after church, I come and pick you up and I take you to a birthday party? He said, because tomorrow is my mom's birthday and my family members are having a dinner and a birthday gathering, so can I come and pick you up? And I said, yes. And so from there, it just, started the courtship from that moment.
Were you in school at the time?
I had recently graduated from Western Kentucky University. I had graduated from there in May of 1994. So we had just relocated to Milwaukee. I was unpacking boxes and I heard a TV or a radio advertisement at the time. And on the radio spot, it was advertising a college that was opening adult learning facilities for those adults that were wanting to return back to school. And in the ad, the radio spot, it said that it would accept all previously earned credits. And that was something I hadn't heard prior to that. So I called the number, and that helped me to then start the process, and I enrolled to go back to school. So while I was in school, your dad was very supportive of me going back, because he was able to come home in the evenings and keep you and then eventually your brother, because I got pregnant with him while I was in school. He was able to keep you all in the evenings because I would go to school 1 or 2 nights a week. When I graduated with my bachelor's degree, it was just a remarkable feeling. Not only had I overcame a medical challenge during that time, and so it was through the course of all that I had gone through, I had communicated my medical challenges and situation with my advisor, and they knew the struggle that I was going through, but I was still able to return back to class. And once then I had completed all my undergraduate studies, they selected me to be one of the student speakers for commencement. So on commencement day, to know that I would get up before a very large crowd of graduates of faculty and parents and students. It really felt like it was a tremendous feeling of accomplishment. Also, I was so internally grateful that I was able to see that. So it was just a great day, a great evening to be able to have come through what I came through with my medical challenges, and then also to complete my goal to complete my undergraduate degree. The advice I would give to anyone wanting to go to college is, number one, not just aspire to go to college, but have your mind set on completing college. Because as I have gone through my experience, I am very aware that there is a lot of talk of students going to college, students getting accepted to college, and that's great. You know, that is a tremendous accomplishment. But you have to really be focused. You have to really be determined and dedicated to complete college, because college offers a lot of opportunity. It also offers a lot of options. Options also come in the way of distractions. So you have got to be dedicated in your mindset to know that you are there for the goal of completing college and earning your degree. So my advice would be to get your mind ready, to make the changes that are necessary, to be dedicated, to put the work in, to complete the task, and to earn your degree. That's my advice.
When did you decide to get a divorce?
Well, for me, it wasn't like I just woke up and said, hey, I'm out of here, this is it, and I'm going to file for a divorce. The signs and the symbols had kind of been there along the way, the red flags, if you will. Even my therapist helped me to understand that my wedding gown getting damaged on the way to Hawaii, which is where we got married, she helped me to understand that that was the biggest red flag. You know, if your wedding dress gets damaged, or if there's anything like that that's really going to throw you off track right before you get married, that was a red flag, but I chose to ignore it. So over the 15 years that I was married, there were just patterns in behavior that I didn't want to put up with anymore. And so it finally came to a point to where I really had to make a hard decision. Once I uncovered the truth, then that's when I knew that I didn't want to go another 15 years living in that same pattern of behavior. So that's when I decided that it was best that I file for a divorce and move on with my life with whatever that was going to look like.
Was the process hard on you?
It was extremely hard. It was extremely hard on me at the time for a number of reasons. Number one, you and your brother were so young. And of course, I didn't want to interrupt your life and school, and we had just moved back to Kentucky. And so I didn't want to interrupt that, yet I knew I had to make a very serious decision. It was also hard because I had just started writing my doctoral dissertation. So I had been in school at this point, and I was just getting ready to start the rigorous academic work in researching and writing my dissertation. So it was hard to see how I was going to survive all of that, any of that, especially with it all happening at the same time. But by the grace of God, I did. I did not choose running. Running chose me, because it actually just started the year or the summer that I decided to file for a divorce. You and your brother were in a summer program. And so the routine was that I would drop you all off in the morning at your summer camp, and then I would take a walk around the park, because the park had a walking trail. And as I was walking and crying and praying and calling out to God, you know, what do I do? What happens next? How did I get here? And I was doing this every day, you know, for weeks. It just became my routine. And on one particular day, as I'm walking and having my talk with God, I have my earbuds in, and it's like a song kicks on, and I'm just really, having a lot of energy. And I think to myself, I wonder if I can run to that blue trash can. And I did. And then I started mapping out and looking at other benchmarks around the trail. And before you knew it, I had ran around the whole walking trail without stopping. And I started to really feel good about myself. I signed up for my first 5K race, and I felt even better. There was so much meaning and accomplishment because I had never done that before, and here I am now running 3 miles. And I began to take fitness classes and build my strength up. And the next thing you know, I'm signing up for more races. I'm running half marathons, and has just become really a transforming activity that has really helped in my life, both physically and emotionally.
Do you think you would have been running if you didn't get a divorce?
Honestly, I don't think so, because it was the pain of the divorce that really pushed me to just move forward. Before the divorce, I found myself really being stagnant in a lot of things, and so sometimes it takes an event to really push you in an area that is out of your comfort zone, and that's what happened to me. And so it was through the pain of the divorce that I started to walk, and then my walk then transitioned into a run, and with that it transformed my pain into power.
When did you get the idea to start your own business?
That idea, it is really something that when I think back, I've kind of always, I guess, been moving towards it some sort of way. Different experiences I have had, of course my education has helped to, open my mindset at possibilities of things I could do on my own. But it really took the last position that I had, which I was a culturally responsive teaching consultant for a state agency. So it was through that work that I was fully exposed of the need that teachers, educators, and really various levels of people, regardless of the industry, that they were in need of understanding. Say they wanted to understand students, for example, from various backgrounds, but didn't know how to. And what happened over the course of my experience, having lived various places, it exposed me to a lot. I mean, travel is really key. And I'm always reading, and taking in new information. And over time, my cultural awareness just really started to unfold. And it started happening through my lived experience. And so then that's when I became very determined, and I took a step of faith, and I resigned and stepped away from the position that I held with the state agency to start my own consulting group of services. And in those services, I offer one-on-one coaching for educators and also influencers in helping them to become more culturally self-aware. And so it's the individual one-on-one coaching that I have designed over a program that I call Gap Academy, because I was always hearing in these meetings how the achievement gap is so big, and which is true. But there's also a gap in culture. The culture gap is real. And so my Gap Academy focuses on grit, accountability, and professionalism. And I help individuals over a 12-week period help them to bring better understanding over the different stages of cultural awareness, where they currently are, and then give them different tools and support and resources so they can move through those stages of cultural awareness. So then they can become or grow in their capacity to support any and every student, any and every individual, regardless of their background or their circumstance. Not an easy process at all, which I am still in the process. But this is what I've learned about myself, is that there are so many unique layers when you step into the world of entrepreneurship, and that you really have to be open to being coached or to have mentors that are going to help shepherd you along the way, because this is new territory for me. And I also have to really value and make a priority for not only my professional development as an entrepreneur, but also my personal development. To make sure that I am staying current, not only with the trends as far as marketing and sales, but that I am really offering quality services, that I am being the best that I can be and what I know that I can produce, and the work that I can bring forward. And so that's something that I am learning about myself, that this is unique, but it's something that I embrace because it is a risk. Any entrepreneur will tell you that it's a great risk to step away from what you were used to and then go into brand new territory. My call to action is one of moving individuals from being a place of being blissfully ignorant when it comes to cultural awareness to being fully engaged, sensitive, and authentic in their interactions with people, so they can provide them quality service, support teachers so they can support all the students regardless of cultural backgrounds or circumstance, that we can move past that and really get to a place of knowing and understanding each other on a deeper level.
What advice would you give to someone trying to start their own business?
Surround yourself with good people who have already either been there or who are very knowledgeable about the process of business. Everything from the startup to the investment to the cost. Knowing where your strengths and your weaknesses are, and then putting necessary people in place to help you along the way, particularly in those areas where you may not be as strong. And so I would advise anyone to really do their homework, to understand what it is they want to offer, to zero in on their niche and be very specific at the services or the products that they're going to offer, and to always be in a place of being open to learn. Never thinking that just because you made it this way, one way, that you have arrived. To always be open and be ready to continually learn. The legacy that I would like to leave behind is a legacy of determination, a legacy of faith, a legacy of not being ordinary, to be extraordinary, to be unique, and to be an individual. A legacy to not be afraid. It's okay to be nervous and okay to be afraid a little bit, because that's natural, but not to be fearful, because I couldn't do anything that I have done over my life had I been in fear. And so that's a part of the legacy that I want to leave, is to not be fearful, to move forward, to keep trusting, to keep believing, and to be yourself. Be totally yourself. Whatever, whoever you are, to own it, to embrace it, and to be it, because you are enough. And that's the legacy that I want to leave. Also, to take risk. Life is short, but life is also filled with beautiful moments. So you have to really be open and be aware to let those moments in. So my legacy is one of just keep on keeping on, keep moving forward, and keep loving and embracing life. Even the hard times, even the hiccups, even the crooked spaces. And to not be afraid to chart your own path, because it's all good. In the end, no matter what, it is all good.